Right, I've come out this afternoon to do something a bit different. I'm at the day mark, obviously you can see in the background. I'm going to run through 5 key important things that I can see that are really going to improve your photography. I'm going to kind of go through a bit of how I think about a scene, how I set it up, what kind of thoughts go through my head when I'm going there. And it's all going to boil down to 5 things that I think, whatever level photographer you are, probably minus the pros and people that do it a lot, how you can improve, how you can think about stuff a bit differently. So it's going to be aimed mainly at kind of amateur beginner photographers, and hopefully it'll make you think a bit differently about a scene or before you go there. Hopefully it'll help you improve your photography. So I'm going to get straight in with the first tip, and that is location. And so I don't just mean go to a nice location, I mean research the location, find out what you're going to do, find out what you're going to shoot there. Most of the time when I'm going to places, specifically the first time, I'll have a look at some of the images from there, know roughly what I can get there, but I won't really do too much research. I don't like going to a location unless I'm going to photograph it, so I'm not one of these people that will go somewhere to do a bit of a recce and come back. But what I mean is kind of know not just the conditions, but what you're going to actually be able to photograph there, what your subject or your foreground is going to be. So I knew that this crop was still here because I looked on Instagram and there was a picture that went up yesterday showing it was still here. So I was hoping he wouldn't have taken it down between then and me coming out. If this was gone, I don't think there'd be a very nice image at all now here. If I got here a few months earlier, I think you still probably could have got a good image, but making sure you come at the right time makes a massive difference. So this field and this day mark can be shot throughout the year, but that crop makes a massive difference to the type of images you're going to get. You get quite nice green grounds now, but if you come later in the year, I can't remember if the farmer puts double crop in here or not, but you actually get quite brown crops in here, which looks really nice. Kind of probably prefer them, to be honest. They look really nice with long exposures and stuff like that. So do your time, spend your time, do your research, and know what you're kind of looking to get when you're there. If you're a photographer, especially a landscape photographer, you should be able to work out roughly, if you're shooting locally, what places look best at what time of year, and you should be able to kind of know when to go at that point. So if I was to come here in the winter, I wouldn't be looking to get these crops in the image, so I probably wouldn't have bothered. I actually came out here about a month ago, a month and a half, and that was to do astro stuff, because that time of year I know that the core of the Milky Way is visible. Again, I probably wouldn't bother coming up here in the winter to do astro stuff, because you're not going to see as much of the good Milky Way. So that's my second tip, really, is know your location well before you go there and shoot. The second thing I'm going to go through is composition. Now, this is the most important thing in your photography. What you want to be doing when you think of going to a location, like I said a bit earlier, you want to be thinking of the whole area. So the thing you want to be going to locations for is the background interest. If you're going to be looking for kind of seascapes, mountain ranges, stuff that is going to fill in the back of your image when you're shooting it, stuff you can frame stuff up against. But the most important thing when you're at your location is your foreground interest. You can change the foreground interest really easily by simply going lower or higher, moving left and right, using different lenses, various other techniques. As a photographer, you're really in control of your foreground. The background is harder to change. Just through basic physics, you're going to have to move a long way to change that background. Your foreground you can change literally by moving inches. So the first thing you want to be thinking about when you go to the location, after you've done a bit of a scout, is your foreground. Don't just set up the camera and take an image of the main subject, which in this case is the day mark. Think about your foreground, think about leading lines, other stuff you can get leading up to it. The day mark here has got this lovely barley and wheat in the field. I've already taken a picture on the camera here, just looking straight down into the day mark, just to give you a basic image, something that you might turn up, quickly look at the ground and the subject and take a picture. And we're going to go and see if we can set up a different composition, see if we can improve that. Normally at this location you can get loads of nice lead-in lines because the farmer obviously drives down the field to spray and various other things like that. So you do have lines where the tractor's driven on to lead up to it. This year, unfortunately, it's not been as good. He's not lined them up with the day mark as well. So we definitely need to have a chat with him and get him to drive towards the day mark when he's next spraying. But we're going to see what we can do really. At the moment it's a nice scene, but it's quite a boring image. There's no real interest in the foreground. And we're going to go around and see what we can do. So I'll catch up with you in a minute and let's see if we can do something a bit better. Right, what I've done now is I've come down the lines where the farmer drives, so I'm not crushing his crop. And like I said, these lines, you can probably just see the shadows of them here in the kind of on the phone. It'd be really nice if they were to point towards the day mark. You could shoot right down on them and get a really cool, nice image, leading line straight up to the centre of it. Unfortunately, this year it hasn't turned out like that, so we're not going to give up. There's still stuff we can do with the foreground to give it more interest. So what we're going to use is we're going to use the light. Now it's getting a bit lower, it's going to start casting a lot of shadows in the dips. So you can probably see on the camera, on the phone here, that you've got these bright bits kind of here, and then the dark bits here, where obviously the kind of the lines are in shadows. So what we can do is we can use that not necessarily as a lead-in line, but something that can add a bit of interest to the foreground, and something that we can kind of lead us down the scene slightly towards the day mark. So this just shows by kind of looking around the field and trying to get something a bit different, we can actually get an image which is probably going to be different to the average person's shot. And that's all photography is really, is composition and light. So we're using both elements here. We're using the light to get the shadows, and we're using our own kind of unique composition we're going for. There are a few other compositions that can be had from here which are quite unique around the day mark, which you'll see in the drone footage if you haven't seen it already, is the kind of circles where the driver or the farmer drives around it. If you come here a bit earlier in the year when the crop's lower or after it's been cut, you can see that circular shape and you can try and get that in the scene. The crop's a bit too high at the moment, so to get that shape you've got to get really close, and because the day mark is quite a high object, then you're not going to be able to get the day mark in the frame of your picture. I'd consider that the most important one really, is use the foreground interest to your advantage. Don't just go to a viewing point and take a picture, see what's there. There could be wildflowers on the cliff, there could be rocks that you could use, lead-in lines, stone walls. That's the most important thing. If you have a look at beginner photographer pictures or snaps just taken on a phone for instance, and you compare them to people that are going there just simply with the aim for landscape photography with better setups and cameras and putting a bit more effort in, you'll notice the number one thing that makes their images better is probably the foreground interest. Composition's key. You can't kind of replace a bad composition. You can work with light, but you can't work with a bad composition. So that's my second thing to improve your pictures. I'll get set up and I'll go through the third one. Right, the third thing I'm going to talk to you about is controlling your conditions. Now this is something that's going to allow you to really make the scene your own. I think there's a big difference between turning up and taking a picture, which is fine, and it depends if you want to go for that. If you want a more of a natural image that shows off the area in a true likeness, then there's nothing wrong with it. But I think what you need to do as a professional photographer or someone that's trying to improve is to look at the overall scene and see what elements you can control in it. So it's going to be really difficult today for me to show this off to you. We've got really strong sun behind us here, which isn't doing us any favours at the moment. and there's not much cloud in the sky. We have a bit of a cloudy haze over this way, and we do have a few kind of wispy clouds over this way, which are kind of getting blocked out by the sun. So the first thing I'm going to go through now is two things. First of all, we're going to control the conditions by putting the sun behind the day mark, which what that should do is that should allow us to see a few of these clouds here. And then I'm going to attempt a long exposure. Now it might not work. We might have to wait for that sun to go down, which if it does, it'll kind of tie in with one of the tips a bit later. But another thing we can do with it, we can use it to get some starbursts or sun stars, probably by lining up with the day mark. So there's two ways we can control the scene or the conditions to get a bit more of a unique image. Trying to get some kind of darkness in the skies by blocking the sun out, which hopefully means we can do something with those clouds, and also trying to get some sun stars. So at the moment where I am, we've got no chance at all. I'm going to move the camera up this way. We can see the shadow from the day mark here. I know if I stand roughly somewhere in that shadow, if I can find a line in the grass where the crop where the farmer's gone through, which I should be able to do, I should be able to set the camera up there, block out the sun, and then by moving just a few meters either side, I should be able to get some cool effects with the sun shining, maybe through the arches, starring out. So I'll go and sit up there and see what we can do. Right, I've got the camera set up now. I didn't actually have to go too far into the field at all. I've actually kept on the line that I was talking to you earlier, so it's ideal. I'm shooting a horizontal shot or a landscape shot at the moment. I can get it on a portrait shot as well. The only thing is on the portrait it's more difficult trying to keep the kind of geometric shape of it without it leaning. I don't know if the day mark has got a bit of a tilt on it, but it's always difficult getting the field looking natural here with the day mark because the field does slope a bit and it is one of those tricky shots to do really. So I'm probably liking the horizontal shot at the moment, but I will give the portrait shot a try as well. I've set up now, so I've got it so I can see two slits of the arches in the shot, and all I'm doing is I'm waiting for the sun to come around just to shine through probably the second arch here, which is the one I'm getting the biggest opening on. And then I'm just going to do some sun stars. If you want to see a good tip on how to get sun stars when you're shooting your images, click the vlog I put up here. It's not really 100% related to that, but I do show in that vlog a good little tip how you do them. So yeah, it's just a waiting game now. I've probably got to wait something like 15 minutes for the sun to come around that different angle to line up. So see how we get on with that and see how it comes out. Right, that kind of ends that one, controlling the conditions. It was a bit difficult, to be honest. There wasn't really much conditions to control. But if we were to want to control the conditions, we would use a few filters. I'll just show you them. We'd probably use something like this, which is an ND filter, which is basically like a big pair of sunglasses for your camera. Makes everything really dark. What that means is, you can't even see through it. What that means is the camera is going to have to take longer to take the picture, which means any movement in the clouds are going to smooth it into a streak. You're not going to have to define clouds, you're going to have nice streaks. It's also the same kind of filters you'd use if you wanted to slow down a waterfall, make the water really smooth, or if you wanted to smooth a lake or the sea or a river and make it a really nice smooth scene. Those type of filters can make a massive difference between a shot that the average person would take with a phone and a shot where a professional photographer or someone who kind of is more of an enthusiast would take, simply because you can't really get those type of filters for camera phones very well, and it's not the kind of thing people are going to use them with. You need to put your camera on a tripod, put the filters on it. It's just not really going to happen. The average person isn't going to do it. What we are using to try and control the conditions here though, the bright skies, is a filter, which I'm actually using a hard grad filter. We wouldn't normally use a hard grad filter for this scene, but this basically will darken the top of the scene whilst not darkening the bottom, so it'll give us a better exposure. You should be able to see that on the phone there, which will bring down the skies. Because the Daymark's so tall, it's going to be darkened with whatever filter I'm going to use, and because the horizon is so straight, I can get away with using a hard grad here. I probably would normally have a soft grad on, but I broke my filters in Iceland and I still haven't replaced them. What that's going to do is allow me to get more of a balanced scene, take the harshness out of that sky and get a more even image, like the kind of one you see with your eyes really. But that's, like I said, that's about all we can really do with the conditions of the Daymark. There's not enough cloud to smooth out. The only cloud is around the sun, and the sun is too strong to get a nice image looking into it. I've controlled the sun or the conditions earlier by putting it and lining it with the arch and getting some high aperture shots just to star the sun out. That's going to give us a bit of a unique image, something slightly different than the rest. So all I'm going to do now is go on to the fourth one, which is probably the last one related to your camera, which is shoot at the end of the day and shoot first thing in the morning. So the light is always the best at the last hour of the day or the first hour in the morning. It's called the golden hour. It's called the golden hour for a reason. You get really, really nice light. You can probably see at the moment it looks like I almost have a tan. I'm not pasty and white anymore, simply because the sun is really nice kind of red colour as it goes down and sets. But it does the same kind of thing on buildings as well. So at the moment the Daymark is this really nice kind of golden brown look, whereas in strong light when I was here earlier it was kind of more of a kind of grey washed out look. You also get a lot nicer light. You get less shadows, or the shadows that you get are more defined and they're softer. So if you're shooting away from the shadows, you get a nicer image. You get better light. You don't get harsh kind of bright bits and dark bits. You get more of an even tone, which is what photographers call soft light. It's always nicer to use. So by shooting around either around sunset or sunrise, you're going to get that really nice light, which is going to give your images that really nice feel. So I'm a big fan of shooting images. You're going to get blown over in a minute, I know. I'm a big fan of shooting images just gone past sunset and just gone past sunrise. You get really nice red skies, fiery skies. But this kind of scene we're looking at the moment is probably not going to lean itself well to that, because there's no clouds to pick up that nice colour. We're only going to get a bit of a hue, and as the sun goes down, the Daymark's going to be in silhouette, so it's not going to be a scene today which is going to yield itself to a very good sunset image. But we're going to be able to use that light to get a really nice picture on the scene. So that is definitely the fourth one. Stay out late, get up early, shoot around sunset and sunrise. You're going to have the place to yourself, less distractions, better light, more unique images, and also it's a really nice feeling just to be up kind of really early in the morning on your own, just going for a walk on a beach or wherever you like. It really helps you unwind and set your mind straight. Right, this is going to be the fifth and final big tip. Whoop. You almost went over. This is going to be the fifth and final tip. Third time. Right, this is the last kind of place I wanted to end this vlog really, but the microphone, or the external mic I was using, had been playing up a lot throughout the day. I was filming this video, and that last clip, after the tripod blew over, I think it kind of finished it off and I couldn't get it to work. I thought it was recording the sound, but when I looked at the video at the end, it was just kind of blank. So it's a real shame, because with this really nice sunset going on behind us, which you've obviously just seen the clip before, unfortunately you're just going to have to look at this rather boring window instead. The fifth point was kind of really though is just to go beyond, get out there, do something a bit different, and just go the extra mile basically. So don't just go to a viewpoint where everyone else goes. If there's a bit of a cliff or a hike that you can do, or a different viewpoint, put in the effort, go for it. Stay out late, do astrophotography, stay out late for sunset, get up early for sunrise, go to locations and camp there, you know, do a bit of wild camping. Just do that bit of extra effort that is going to make your scene or your images a bit different than everyone else's. That's all it comes down to really, is just trying to get something different and get something that's really going to satisfy you. Like I said, not the most ideal place to do a bit about getting out, consider I'm in the house, but that's basically the last kind of point really, is just go the extra mile, put the extra bit of effort in, and just try and get something that is really good, really unique, whether it be making more effort at locations or going to harder locations to get to, or travelling. I do a lot of travelling for photography. That does kind of a lot of the time mean I do tend to shoot the well shot locations when I'm there, which is kind of counter to what I'm saying earlier. But the reason with that really is just time scale. Sometimes I don't have very long locations if I'm doing a bit of a road trip and I've got to do a lot of driving as well. But you get the point really, so make the effort, try different locations. When you're there, try different compositions, try different kind of shooting viewpoints and things like that. Or just give it a try with different kind of gear and where you shoot really. But just try and do that bit of extra when you go there, put the extra bit of effort in, and see how it turns out. Hope you've enjoyed this. Anyway, hopefully it's going to make you think a bit, kind of maybe more about the images. It's kind of what I look at when I go and shoot. When I go and shoot a scene, kind of what goes through my head, and it's just a few things that I thought might improve your landscape photography if you're at kind of a beginner level. So hope you found it interesting. Hope you find it useful. If you want to put any comments in it, obviously stick them in the box. I love reading through the comments and replying to them. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Let me know if you didn't, and I'll see you on the next one.